Salutations, everypup, and welcome to Chapter 37 of The One They Call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's jump on into it. Chapter 37, Ghosts and Exams, for both humans and cats. Summary. First morning in the dorms, but there's something supernatural about it. Class 1A has their midterm exams. Meanwhile, Broccoli has his own exam to get through. Author's notes. Hello, everyone. Here we go with yet another Broccoli chapter. I'm gonna try keeping the chapters at this length, just so I'm able to update more often. Hope you enjoy. Broccoli's point of view. Broccoli, thankfully, managed to wake up before his dad's the next morning. Not that he'd gotten much sleep in the first place, having instead spent the night watching YouTube videos on his phone. As soon as he heard his dad's alarm, he was quick to crawl out of his little cat house, turn into Izuku, pull his phone towards him, and quickly turn back into Broccoli. It was extremely risky, and he made a mental note not to do this sort of thing too often. A few minutes later, his dads emerged from their bedroom, with Slushy trailing behind them and heading straight to the food bowls to beg for food. Speaking of food, Broccoli was now facing a dilemma. He could eat breakfast here, but that might worry his classmates since he hadn't joined them for dinner last night. But if he skipped breakfast as Broccoli, then his dads would worry that something was wrong. Settling on a compromise, Broccoli ate a small portion of his food and then hurried for the door before his dads could stop him. He heard Shota yell something after him as he left, but he ignored it as he sprinted out the door and into the lounge. A few of his classmates were already down in the kitchen and preparing breakfast. Ida was one of them, and also the first one to spot him.
Oh, good morning, to you. Did you sleep well?
Ida asked politely, earning an eye roll and a meow from Broccoli.
Right, you cannot speak. That is correct. Well, I guess we'll see each other later.
Broccoli could almost laugh at the awkwardness of the interaction, and he let out a small, amused snort before he turned tail and headed outside. The other students called out goodbye after him, and it felt sort of nice to be acknowledged, even like this. He shook his head as he rounded the building until he was beneath his own balcony, where he climbed the tree right outside and leaped onto the balcony with ease before changing back into Izuku and heading inside. Once inside his own room, Izuku stretched and let out a satisfied sigh. It didn't exactly feel like home yet, but it was nice to have a place he could call his own. He quickly got changed and went back downstairs. By now, a few more students had arrived, but Izuku was far from the last one. Good morning, Izuku greeted Ida, who perked up at the sound of his voice.
Ah, Midoriya, there you are. I was wondering when you would show up.
Sorry, it took a while to get ready, Izuku said, earning a nod of understanding from his friend. Students continued to flood the lounge, and soon they were all eating breakfast together. Hey, Midobro, why did you disappear like that yesterday? Kirishima asked. You totally missed our room show-off. Room show-off? Izuku echoed. Yeah, we went through each other's rooms and declared the best one as the winner. It was so much fun, Hagakure answered cheerfully. Oh, sorry, I was so tired and had to go to bed early, Izuku apologized. It does sound fun, though. Man, I wanted to see your room, too. I bet it's filled with all sorts of nerd hero stuff, Araraka said wistfully. Not really. I don't exactly have that much merch, Izuku answered, cheeks turning a bit red from embarrassment. Really? And here I thought you were a huge fanboy, Kaminari teased. I am. I mean, well, yeah, I am that. A fan, I mean. But that doesn't mean I have to have a collection, Izuku defended. He definitely didn't think of the mountain of treasure hidden inside his dad's closet that he felt a weird possessiveness over. Anyway, who won the competition? Izuku asked curiously. He was a bit bummed out about missing something like that. It seemed like it could have been fun. Sato won! He served us a delicious cake, Ashida answered cheerfully. Izuku let out a surprised laugh. That's what made him win? Cake? Well, yeah, it was either that or Koda because we got to pet his adorable little bunny friend, Hagakure answered with a delighted squeal. In that case, Aizawa-sensei should probably also be high on the list, considering how adorable his little cat was, Araraka pointed out. Suddenly, the conversation had turned towards him, and Izuku had to fight the urge to sink down into a seat from embarrassment. Oh yeah, the little guy was adorable, and he has a quirk, Kaminari agreed excitedly. Don't they have another cat? Do you think we'll get to meet that one too, Gato? Suyu wondered aloud. As if on cue, their teachers walked out of their apartment, and behind them trailed a timid-looking slushy who was taking in the new environment with big blue eyes. As soon as she saw Izuku, though, she meowed and wandered over to him. She almost immediately jumped into his lap and gave a loud purr, earning coos from almost everyone around them. Hey, you slushy, did you miss me? Izuku cooed gently as he gave his sister a scratch behind her ear, making her purr louder. She says she did, Koda answered just as gently, causing Izuku's gaze to snap over to him. You you can understand her? It should have been obvious. After all, Koda had spoken to Broccoli last night and had held conversation with countless animals before, but there was just something thrilling about knowing he could finally have a way to understand his sister. Of course he can, Kaminari laughed, voicing what they had all been thinking. Hey, how come she walked straight to you, Midoriya? Have you two met before? Oh, yeah. I cat sat for Sensei while he was recovering at the hospital. We kind of bonded. It's really cool how we have a way to understand her now, though. As if to answer, so she meowed again, and everyone looked at Koda for guidance. She says she wants food, Koda translated with a sheepish smile. Everyone laughed at that, especially Izuku. Of course she does, Shota groaned. Don't go and feed her anything. She's on a strict diet. I swear she could eat a whole building if she was given the chance. By the way, Koda, you spoke to the other one yesterday. Broccoli, right? What did he have to say? Jiro asked the boy curiously. Oh, Koda trailed off, looking suddenly uncomfortable. I'd also like to know that, Shota added. Beside him, Toshinori was also looking on in interest. He, he was a bit irritated by everyone. Said they were too loud. But, he seemed to like you too, Sensei. He called you his dads. At that, both their teachers froze before Shota hid his face in his capture weapon, probably to hide what would be an obvious smile on his face. Meanwhile, Toshinori looked over the moon. He was smiling so wide that Izuku was sure his cheeks must hurt and his eyes were practically sparkling. Did you hear that, Shota? We're dads! Toshinori whispered excitedly, though it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, I heard, Shota muttered, trying to sound unaffected and failing hard. That is so cute! Hagakure squealed. Others had similar reactions. I ship it, Ashida whispered excitedly, looking between Shota and Toshinori with obvious glee. Meanwhile, Izuku wanted nothing more than to sink under the floorboards and never emerge again. The vestiges laughed at him definitely. The vestiges laughing at him definitely didn't help with his embarrassment. Way to throw him under the bus, Koda. But at least he kept the secret safe? The teachers soon left, but not before reminding them to not be late for homeroom. Sashi had gone to explore the lounge area and was right now being showered with various pets from various students on the couch, while others cleaned up. They had been assigned to cleaning schedules and would rotate between each other every week. This week it was Izuku, Shinso, and Kaminari's turn. While cleaning, Izuku accidentally knocked over a glass, but before he could catch it, Nana already did and put it back on the counter. Unfortunately for them, Kaminari had noticed and proceeded to freak out. What the heck was that? Dude, did that glass just float? No, Izuku said dumbly. No, what do you mean, no? It totally did. What was that? Chill out. It was probably just a ghost, Shinsa said offhandedly with a shrug. A ghost? Kaminari squeaked, all of the color having been drained from his face. Yeah, dude, ghosts are totally real. Deal with it. This place is haunted and we are their victims now, so you better get used to it. The purple-haired teen sighed dramatically as he continued to wash the plates. Shinso, you should not spread such baseless rumors, Ida scolded from the living room. I'm just saying it as it is. You'll see soon enough. The teen answered ominously. As if on cue, the lights over them started flickering, and Izuku glared at Diagoro, who was messing with the light switch and laughing like an idiot. All at once, chaos unfolded, and they all turned to Kaminari, who told him to stop.
It's not me, guys! It's gotta be the ghosts! Oh god, we really are haunted!
All at once, the light stopped flickering, and Izuku shot Yoichi a relieved look when the vestige dragged Diagoro away from the switch by the ear. Stop scaring the kids, Yoichi scolded before forcing them both back into the mindscape.
Okay, so can we all agree that was weird?
Kirishima said with a nervous laugh.
Yeah, is it really ghosts? It wasn't you who did that, right, Hagakure?
Ashida asked nervously.
I'm sitting right here, Hagakure defended from the couch.
It is ghosts, Shinso insisted, and they are assholes, he added with a groan.
Oh my god, shut the fuck up about ghosts!
Bakugo suddenly snapped.
It was probably just bad wiring. Shit like ghosts ain't real.
Quiet, non-believer! Do you want to anger the ghosts? Kaminari cried out, looking around frantically as if they would be attacked at any moment. At any moment.
They aren't real,
Bakugo answered with a shout. Beside him, Shinso started laughing, and he glanced over at Izuku. You know what? Maybe being haunted won't be so bad. At least not if they have more victims to mess with. The purple-haired teen said in a smirk. Izuku felt himself smile a little at that, too, while the class continued to bicker and divide themselves into groups of believers and non-believers. Maybe living in a dorm would be kind of fun. Classes resumed as usual after that, and they sort of fell into a routine with their new dorm life. Broccoli would wake up, eat a little bit of breakfast with his dad and sister before heading out and eat a little bit breakfast with his classmates. He'd then head to school, go home to the dorms, spend time with his friends before heading upstairs and change back into Broccoli for the rest of the evening and night. His friends had expressed worried over him never eating dinner with them, and Shinso had been annoyed over him skipping cleaning duty during the evening, but Izuku just blamed it on him not feeling well in the evenings and needing to sleep. He also told them he preferred eating a smaller snack before bed, hence him skipping dinner. He felt bad about skipping cleaning, though, but the others reassured him it was fine if he wasn't feeling well. His life as Izuku was fine, and not that different from before. Broccoli, on the other hand, his life had changed quite drastically. He barely had any time to himself now that they lived together with so many other people, and while Broccoli couldn't stand most of them, he found himself enjoying the company of a selected few. Shinso was still viewed as the intruder and would be treated as such. Despite Broccoli's logic, Despite Broccoli logically knowing the teen wasn't a threat anymore, he just couldn't trust him to not steal his dad's. Ida and Todoroki were fine. Broccoli would often find himself close to one of them, since they knew his secret and would keep him safe from their more outgoing classmates. Bakugo was a big no-no. So were most of the other loud teens, especially the ones like Ashida who kept trying to befriend and pet him. He even had a hard time liking Uraraka because she was just too energetic, despite her being one of Izuku's best friends. Then there was Koda, who Broccoli had been skeptic of at first. After all, he knew his secret and could turn on him at any moment. But he was also one of the few people who understood him, and so Broccoli would find himself spending evenings in the smaller lounge talking with Koda. Broccoli had only ever had the vestiges to talk with before, and hadn't realized how much he'd missed having someone his own age to talk to. The quiet teen turned out to be pretty nice company once he finally opened up his shell, which he did much easier with Broccoli than he'd ever done to Izuku. Probably because he was an animal now? He even acted as a translator so Broccoli could finally speak to Slushy. Granted, most of her thoughts had been a repetition of, I love you and I want food, but it was so nice to finally understand each other. He also talked a bit with Koda's bunny, UI, who, just like Slushy, didn't say much other than some simple sentences. UI was just the cutest though. She and Slushy had immediately bonded over their shared love for cuddles and naps, and sometimes Broccoli would join them, and his dads and classmates would find the three of them in a cuddle pile in some corner of the dorm or inside their dad's apartment. Tokayami had also been someone that Broccoli was surprisingly okay with. The Raven would sometimes join him and Coda during their chats, and Dark Shadow would sometimes join the animal trio in their cuddle pile. There was just something with the birds that made him easy to relate to. Maybe because he'd been also once been labeled as a quirked animal, since he'd been born as a regular bird who later developed a quirk. With so many different people around, Broccoli didn't feel nearly as lonely as he had before. Not that he had realized he'd ever been lonely, but it was hard to imagine going back to the hours he spent cooped up in their little apartment, with only Slushy as his company while they waited for their dads to get home. Days turned into weeks, and soon it was time for their midterm exam, right before summer vacation would start. Apparently, there would be a summer camp for everyone who succeeded in the exam, and Izuku was really excited to go. So were most of his classmates. Then came the day of the exam, and Izuku was paired up with Yaomomo, and they were fighting Aizawa sensei. Shit. At least he wasn't fighting All Might, like Kachan and Todoroki were doing. He sent out quiet prayers to his two friends, hoping they'd be able to make it. Him and Yaomomo somehow managed to defeat the Eraserhead, though Izuku knew that was only because the teacher had a handicap and was going easy on them. Kachan and Todoroki were not that lucky and had lost their fight. They'd also ended up in the infirmary for their trouble. Later, when they got home, Shota had teared into Toshinori over not going easy enough on their students. Shinso and Sero had managed to defeat Midnight. Kind of. Sero had fallen asleep and not done much, leaving Shinso to carry the whole battle. Therefore, Sero had failed. Kirishima, Sato, Ashida, and Kaminari had also failed their exam, meaning almost half the class had failed. Shota had not been happy with those results, and the students had been even less happy, mostly because they wouldn't be able to join the summer camp. But of course, it had just been a logical ruse, and they would all be allowed to join, which Broccoli already knew since he'd heard his dads talk about the trip. And so, the midterm exam was finally over, but Izuku couldn't relax just yet, because Broccoli had his own exam to take. It was finally time for him to take his support animal license. Technically speaking, most needed tons of lessons in order to get their license, but Shota was convinced that Broccoli would be able to get it before summer camp started in the week. No pressure or anything. It was a Sunday, and Shota, Toshinori, and Broccoli all headed out for their first lesson. Broccoli sat in his favorite spot, which was inside Shota's scarf. The man hadn't planned to bring it, but seeing how Broccoli refused to leave it alone, the man had relented with a sigh and put it on. They drove towards the hospital, where they'd meet the group holding the lesson. Inside, they were met with 10 or so people, all having different animals by their side. And as soon as they stepped inside the room, all the animals immediately rushed towards Toshinori. A pigeon even flew right into his face, while another landed on his shoulder, both cooing nonstop. "All right, that's enough! Kibo, Yuna, get back here!" a familiar voice called out. One of the pigeons immediately flew back to its owner, while the other sat on top of Toshinori's head, still cooing worriedly and pecking at his hair. "Kibu, I said get back here," the owner repeated. Broccoli could recognize her as the kind receptionist, Hattori, from the hospital. The pigeon, Kibo, finally relented and flew back to its owner, landing on her head instead. The birds hadn't even cared that they'd been so close to a cat, their mortal enemy. Just how dense were these pigeons? The other owners soon got their own pets to back off too. Most of them were dogs, but there was also a few other cats and a bunny in the group. And was that a goat? "Man, are you okay? I've never seen my Charlie react like that before," one of the men in the group asked Toshinori. The others were also shooting him worried looks, as if he would straight up fall over and die at any second. Toshinori laughed awkwardly. "Haha, I'm fine! This tends to happen whenever service animals see me. I probably should have expected that." Broccoli climbed out of Shota's scarf and jumped over to Toshinori's shoulder, where he booped him on the chin. He didn't like getting reminded of how sick he was. "I'm all right, little one. Don't worry about me," Toshinori told him gently. Is that the quirked cat that's joining us this week?" someone in the group asked. "Yes, it is," Hattori answered for them. "Everyone, this is Aizawa and Yagi, together with their little Broccoli. As you all know, he is a quirked cat with a boosted intelligence, so we don't expect him to stay in this course for too long." Again, no pressure or anything. But as it turned out, the classes weren't that hard. Most of it was based on repeating the same thing and complimenting the animal when they did what was expected of them. But since Broccoli was quirked, he could understand the instructions and therefore knew what to do as soon as he was told. It was all pretty basic stuff, too. Pay close attention to the sick person, stay by their side, and keep an eye on anything out of the ordinary and stuff like that. He also learned that apparently he could sense different illnesses based on their sense. Sure, he knew that sometimes his dad's scent changed based on if they were sick or not, but hadn't ever thought of that as like being a superpower or a detector like the humans apparently saw it as. They presented him with pieces of cloth coated in different scents, and Broccoli had to identify the one coming from someone who was sickly. He felt a bit bad when he always went for the one smelling like Toshinori, but it ended with him getting full points, so at least he got it right. There was also a lesson for him between different types of illnesses, both physical and psychological, how to identify seizures, panic attacks, and a bunch of other stuff that left Broccoli's head spinning. By the time they were done, Broccoli felt exhausted, but he'd also earned his brand new support animal license, making him break a new record. Thankfully, the instructor promised to keep a low profile with the deal that Broccoli would come by once a month and help with the patients in the hospital. So now Broccoli has a job! Sort of. He'd start after Shota came back from the training camp, since the man wanted to be there and make sure everything went well. After getting back to UA, both his dads and his classmates praised him a lot. And for once, Broccoli didn't hide from all the attention. Instead, he stood tall and soaked in all the praise, feeling for the first time like he'd actually done something right. Things were looking good, both for Izuku and Broccoli. And tomorrow, Izuku would head to the mall together with his dads and his classmates. Yes, things were definitely looking good. So, of course, something had to go terribly wrong. Author's notes. Anyone who knows me also knows about my pet pigeons, Kibo and Yuna. That scene was actually based on how they act whenever I'm sick or have a panic attack. Just one moment you are anxious AF, then a pigeon collides with your face and it's hard to stay anxious anymore because you're laughing so hard. Any pigeon bullying in this chapter was made with love. I love the little ones. But man, they are also the dumbest little shits. I've literally seen pigeons flirt with cats. Cats! How are they still alive? Anyway, pigeons are great, and I will fight anyone saying otherwise. You know, I had to add the dorms are being haunted trope to this story, lol. It's one of my favorite things ever. I won't focus too much on it, since then we'd be here forever, and I want to move the story along. But I might make a one-shot dedicated to just the vestiges and how they're messing with the class behind Izuku's back. That being said, we're going to the mall! And of course, Izu's dads will be there to keep an eye out for any trouble. Will that change anything? Perhaps. Anyway, thank you everyone for your continued support, comments, and patience. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And that's a wrap on chapter 37. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was actually really fun to read. Oh my gosh. Oh, but you know something crazy? After my first Bakugo line, when I first did his line and I spoke in his voice, I gave myself the hiccups. I had to pause the recording and take away my hiccups. It was difficult. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed so much. Please go show the original author, Texiliaz, some love. Please leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. They make me so happy. Please leave me specifically hate comments. That being said, there are some people I need to shout out. So shout outs to Starkill Knights 6167. Thank you for your hate comment. Yes, I find that funny, and that does count as a hate comment. You can just spam it. Please leave a hate comment, and I will shout you out. Please don't flame anybody I do shout out, because I ask for hate comments. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, pups!